South African pastime.
Travel 小话，the moment is on now. Okay, no linking. You got the link. Okay. My phone is not connected.
Howdy, Jake. Yep.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bhaji Vardari Gopi Jana Bhaji Vardari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai, Shri Nectar of Devotion ki jai. Welcome to chapter 12 and 13 of Nectar of Devotion. So, let's repeat the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And together. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyagaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nannena Mataliko Vanderupa Sanatana Rago Yugo Sri Jiva Gopala Go. Avesh, read loudly.
After my respectful Sri Santana Goswami, Sri Raghunatha Bhakta Goswami, Sri
Not das.
Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopala Bhakta were very excellent, scrutinizing, studying all the reveals, aim of establishing unrelated and for the copy. Thus they are under all the yeah, but taking shells off because they absorb the mood of the copies, patience, diplomatic service.
Jai. So we've landed now at chapter 12. You've made it through 1 dozen chapters, in other words. Well done. To read these books on one's own accord sometimes is very, very difficult and takes a long time. But by your inspiration, we are now at chapter 12. And this chapter is entitled Further Aspects of Transcendental Service. So in this chapter 12 and chapter 13, you'd find actually a repetition of what we'd done before. Am I audible? Yeah, so as I was saying, you'll find actually the subject matter is repeated. And in chapter 12 itself, you'll get further emphasis on the same thing again. So as I said before, that the Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, they have done this to reinforce this important aspects in our consciousness, in our very being, because after this particular book will take raises the consciousness to very high subject matter. So there's therefore that stress for us to grasp these essential or fundamental practices that are necessary or stepping stones for us to actually be able to digest higher subject matters. So hearing revealed scriptures. Commonly, a question will be asked in a society or an institution where there are so many current leaders, there are past leaders, etc., and there's so many books available. You know, is it authorized for everybody to write books? Is it okay? You know, whose books can I read, etc. So these may be some questions, and Prabhupada answers these very, very succinctly. He gives us very clear direction in these pages of Nectar of Devotion. According to Srila Rupa Goswami, any book which gives enlightenment in the matter of advancing in devotional service is considered to be revealed scripture. Srila Madhava Acharya has also defined revealed scriptures as referring to books such as Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literature written in pursuance of such revealed scriptures. So here, Srila Prabhupada starts this section with this particular thought pattern that Rupa Goswami is explaining any book which gives enlightenment in the matter of advancing in devotional service is revealed scripture, and Madhvacharya clarifies that the revealed scriptures are the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Puranas, Upanishads, and Vedanta. And of the Puranas, there are so many Puranas, but the cream of the Puranas is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's considered to be the cream. So just as when you have a pot of milk and you boil the milk, the most nourishing part when you're boiling the milk is the thick cream that assembles on the top of it. So similarly, from all the Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was so mercifully and with so much compassion given to us by Srila Prabhupada, is the topmost scripture. So how do we honor these books? In the Skanda Purana, there's a statement: a person who is constantly engaged in reading literature, enunciating the cultivation of Vaishnav devotional service, is always glorious in human society. And certainly Lord Krishna becomes pleased with him. A person who carefully keeps such literature at home and offers respectful obeisances. Hmm? A person who very carefully keeps such literature at home and offers respectful obeisances to it becomes freed from all sinful reaction and ultimately becomes worshipable by the demigods. It is also said to Narad Muni, my dear Narad, a person who writes Vaishnav literature and keeps such literature at home has Lord Narayan always residing in his house. So, how do we value these books? How do we show respect to them? How do we honor these books? Very clear. You constantly read them. You're offering Buddhi Yoga. It's called Buddhi Yoga, offering your intelligence, using your intelligence to link up with Krishna. So, constantly engaged in reading them. Then, very carefully keeps such literature. So, sometimes we may think, um, the devotees are a bit forceful when it's time to sell books. Then they kind of like, a bit forceful. You don't have a set of Bhagavatams. You should get a set of Bhagavatams. I'm selling a set of Bhagavatams. Your whole life will become perfect if you have these Bhagavatams. It's true, because here in the scripture it's being said, if one very carefully keeps such literature at home and offers respectful obeisances, in many temples, instead of the deity, these books are actually placed on altars and respectful artis are offered to it. Then one who writes Vaishnav literature and keeps such literature at home has Lord Narayan always residing in his house. Why? Because these books are non-different from Krishna. They're non-different from Lord Narayan because they proclaim the glories of the Lord. Therefore, these books should be treated with respect. And some practical things you learn in the society of devotees: to respect the book. You don't write in the book. You don't keep the book on the floor. You don't keep it on anyway below the waist. It's always above. And you'll see how even to read these books, one gets higher benefit actually if one does it with more commitment. I was reading, I can't remember where, Someone was saying, if you do Archiman and you sit down and you offer prayers to the book and then you start to read it, that mood of reverence will actually prevent you from falling asleep, because now you're psyching up your mind that this is a sort of puja, that I'm going to offer my intelligence to this scripture, and attention will become more concentrated. So should other devotees write books? The Srimad Bhagavatam is declared to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who has felt satisfaction from this nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. So here, this quotation is being given that the Srimad Bhagavatam is such a thing that once you encounter the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the nectar within the pages of the Bhagavatam, one won't be attracted to any other literature. The Bhagavatam further explains that other literature which do not glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. So a crow is a type of bird that crows and vultures, what do? They go for dead matter. So other literature that becomes the place of pilgrimage for crows and vultures is considered, in other words, like dead matter. Why? It won't enliven the Atma. It is not life-giving as these reciprocal books. These books are actually not just matter, they are the personality. Therefore, Prabhupada oftentimes would say, if you have some dilemma and if you open any book at any place, you will find an answer to your dilemma. And I'm telling you that this is like such a miraculous thing for one who has, I mean, in my short period of being in Krishna consciousness, I used to distribute books for many years on the street. We used to distribute sets of books to universities, etc., for many years. So we would encounter all different types of people. And an amazing thing is when you tell people that they can open to any page and the answer to whatever they're going through will be there. A miraculous thing, like the super soul from you to that person, there's some connection. And sure, when the person opens the book, you try it out on somebody, it never fails. It just never fails. I know of one devotee in Phoenix. So he's a very simple devotee, but he has this great affinity to distribute Bhagavad Gitas. And he's always got Bhagavad Gitas at hand in his car. So whoever he sees, he makes time, he has like an allocation of time in his day that he's going to go meet at least one person and show the person the Bhagavad Gita. So he said, if the person doesn't take the book, if the person doesn't show interest in reading the book also, at least if they touch, Prabhupada said, at least if they touch the book, their life will be altered. So what he does is he asks the person, when's your birthday? So someone would say, like maybe the 19th of the 7th month. So what he does is that he opens chapter 7, text number 19, and he reads it out to them. And he tells them, this message is for you. And in that way, because, I mean, you can't say the 19th chapter because there's 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. So as soon as the dates go, after 18, he switches it around and he uses that as his selling method. And it's incredible. He's not the type of person who can repeat philosophy or, can maybe give a class or things like that. Just that simple strategy that's used, because he's so sincere. He's distributed so many Bhagavad Gitas, and religiously every day he sets out to meet at least one person to do this. And he's been doing it for some years. So it's incredible how these books go. You ask, another thing is, these books, they're actually meant for different people. Like Prabhupada gave in the Sankirtan books, the books that the devotees write about, sort of giving pep talks for the Sankirtan devotees. I forget, there was that red covered book, you remember? All glories to the Sankirtan devotee. So there's different quotations there. So these books are known as time bombs, and they're waiting, they're going to explode in somebody's life with goodness, right? Like, take me, for example. I'm living testimony, I would say, to the fact that these books, they're time bombs and they reach you when they're meant to be. When um, they're aimed at you. You can't avoid it. It'll come to you, right? I lived 75 kilometers away from any Hare Krishna temple. My father, he wouldn't send me by public transport anyway because he was so protective. So my cousin in the apartheid era, he skipped the country because he was part of the police force and he wanted to leave because police force was under the other government, and he was a supporter of the ANC. So he skipped the country and he took a flight to India. He met the devotees there, he liked them. Then he took a flight to Boston, where he was destined to go and study law. And on the Boston campus, he met the Hare Krishna devotees. He saw them and he got it was an instant connection to his culture. So what he did was that he volunteered to help them. They were setting up a table for books and prasadam. So he went to go help them. And they either sold or gave him a copy of Chant and Be Happy and a Japa Mala. My cousin stayed in Boston for some time and eventually sneaked back into the country, and he met my elder brother in Johannesburg, and he saw this boy is all alone away from family. So he said to my brother that this book is all about prayer. Anything you want to know about prayer is in this book. So when my brother came home sometime later to visit us, he had, one of these big suitcases. And at the bottom of the suitcase, he had presents for the whole family. So my mom, dad, and myself were there. At that time, we were the members that were in the house. So he opened his suitcase and his Camel Soft Pack cigarettes, they, became visible. And, in our culture, the boy will be smoking. The parents may know, but he won't do it in front of the parents. That was like some sort of respect. So he clutched the book, the Chant and Be Happy, and he clutched the Camel Soft Pack cigarettes underneath. He winked at me and he said, "This book is all about prayer. Anything you want to know about prayer is in this book," which in effect meant take my cigarettes and hide it, which I did. I loved my brother. I covered up for him. So I took the cigarettes and I hid it. But I left the book on a mantelpiece, and for a few days I looked at the cover. But at the bottom of his suitcase, he had all the bestsellers, And I wouldn't want to mention the inglorious titles of all those thick bestsellers.
Pilgrimage places for the crow.
Yeah, it was. He had the pilgrimage places for crows and vultures, sort of carpeting that big suitcase. So I read all of those books, but I would look at the cover of this book where George Harrison and Prabhupada was, and by that association, one day I opened the book because I was a bookworm. So I had nothing to read. I opened the book, and immediately that first paragraph where Prabhupada says, everyone's looking for happiness in sex, drugs, rock and roll, sports, etc., etc., etc. And he goes on to explain how that type of happiness is simply temporary because it's aimed at the body, but there's a happiness that's far long lasting. That's the happiness of connecting the soul with Krishna through transcendental sound vibration. That first point was such an awakening for me that I read that entire book in one sitting. Came to the middle and I saw Prabhupada, with the beads, and later on my brother took the beads and he hung it by our prayer place. So I said, "Hey, that's the beads." I got the beads, I counted 108. Prabhupada had those beads. and that I started chanting immediately, and I am always in awe of how that one book, no human being in person preached to me, but that one small book that wasn't even written by Srila Prabhupada. Later on, years ago, years after, sorry, I came to know that that book was not written by Srila Prabhupada. It's a compilation by his devotees of things that Prabhupada said, and the interview with George Harrison, etc. And I was thinking, wow, if his representatives book could have changed my life, that immediately when I came to the back of the book, the 4 regular principles were mentioned, and I thought, wow, I just have to give up meat eating. And overnight I became a vegetarian in a house of meat eaters at the age of 13, right? This book altered my life, and I never went back. I continued chanting 16 rounds, etc., from that day onwards. And I later on never met the devotees, but I met a son of a devotee who had neck beads at school. And I went up to him and asked him, "How are you related to Swami Prabhupada? You have the same beads." And then he told me his father sells the books for the Chatsworth Temple, and I ordered the entire stack. So those books at that time, they were, I experienced, and I'm sure every one of you have experiences, that the thirst for understanding more and more was so like sort of vicious. Like I became a voracious reader. In school, I would have the day I received the book, I took the Science of Self-Realization, and I was reading, I remember. And we had a triple English period. So I had the book under the desk, and I was reading the book. And then the teacher called me for an impromptu speech. So I went in the front of the class, and I gave them the whole thing about karma and reincarnation that I just read in the book. And the Muslim teacher, he was like in awe, like, how could I like speak so fluently on something so esoterical? But it was just Prabhupada's books, and how if nobody like me could just like repeat it, and boys from that class became Vaishnavas. They still go to the Chatsworth Temple, because whatever I read came out in all my talks, and I was in the line of public speaking a lot in school, so it all came out that way. So the books that are written even by the followers of Prabhupada could transform me. What to speak of, distributing Prabhupada's original books. You ask one question about the nature of books. I want you to write as my disciples on this point. Krishna consciousness is not limited. Persons like all of the Goswamis wrote so many books. Vishwanath Chakravarti and all the acharyas wrote books. And still, I am writing books. Similarly, also, my disciples will write. So Srila Prabhupada, and this is just one quotation from one letter. There are several places where Prabhupada, he encouraged the devotees to write books. And he says that this is an unlimited ocean, right? So you understand my purports, and then in your own words, you speak it and you write it. So the writing of books is there. So who can write books? All of you should be writing books, in other words, right? So all of us should understand this and be able to be the post women, to deliver this message in an untainted way, to keep the legacy of Srila Prabhupada glowing. Residing in Mathura. So do we have any questions or comments on that section before we move on? Yes, Prabhu.
Some devotees says that as devotees we should read Prabhupada's book first.
Yes. So the comment is, some devotees say that we should read Srila Prabhupada's books first. I firmly believe that this is actually the way to go. And because Prabhupada is the founder acharya of our society, and if you read his books, then you have a foundation of what to look for in other authors' books. Otherwise, we can be very easily fooled. We won't know which book, um, what the foundation of the teachings are. So Prabhupada's books are that important. Then you have the other question, what about the other acharyas' books? Because Prabhupada, in his books, in his purports, he says you must read the Chaitanya Bhagavat, you must read, such and such book, etc. What about all of that? So the thing is, because we accept Prabhupada as our preeminent Shiksha Guru in ISKCON, and we accept him as the Senapati of Lord Chaitanya's movement, the commander in chief, we don't skip over the Acharya. So you read the Acharya's books first, then you can, when you finish, you've sufficiently understood Srila Prabhupada's books, then you can venture off to Chaitanya Bhagavat and everything else like that. And it's an incredible thing. Reading of the literature, and you'll see Prabhupada's going to come back to that point. So we'll save some other stories for when we come to the point again. But the Srila Prabhupada's books is a foundation. We read his books, we study his books, and then we'll be able to understand even everybody else's books better. Otherwise, it can be quite bewildering. Any comments on that? Okay. Then we come to the next thing, residing in Mathura. So now everyone has to pack their bags and go to Mathura. So what does this mean, residing in Mathura? In the Varaha Purana, there's a statement praising the residential quarters of Mathura. Lord Varaha tells the men of earth, any person, quote, any person who becomes attracted to places other than Mathura will certainly be captivated by the illusory energy. In the Brahmanda Purana, it is said that all the results of traveling on all pilgrimages within the three worlds can be achieved simply by touching the holy land of Mathura. In many Shastras, it is said that simply by hearing, remembering, glorifying, desiring, seeing, or touching the land of Mathura, one can achieve all desires. So the first thing that we're being taught here is that everything else, if one is not attracted to Mathura, all other places that one can get attracted to, what are they? What is that? That is actually the illusory energy. So Prabhupada has time and time again told us that the material world is a perverted reflection of the reality of the spiritual existence, the spiritual world. And how often it is that, if you go to social media, you'll see someone who will be telling you about how this beach looks and how they went on holiday here, etc., etc., etc. So as attractive as all of these places look, one has to understand that this is all part of the reflection. We're still playing in the reflection. The reality is places like here, Mathura. Why? When you go to Mathura, I remember I've been to India maybe like 21 times and only to Vrindavan and Mayapur, nowhere else. So I read, I think it was Prabodhananda Saraswati's prayers. He or one of the acharyas had said that when you go to a place of pilgrimage, if you simply go around from one place to the other sightseeing or taking bath in holy rivers, said even buffaloes do that. Said an intelligent human being, and I'm paraphrasing, should take the opportunity of hearing from saintly persons when one goes to the Dham. So we at that time, and that's why we never even wandered around Vrindavan. we found a classroom, the VIHE classroom. We'd save all our money and we'd have enough money to pay for the VIHE courses, and we'd go year after year and study under different esteemed teachers in the VIHE, MIHE, like that, and eventually started teaching there also. So what happened was these places of Mathura, I remember the first time I went and I was sitting on a rickshaw, and it was such an experience, and I'm sure you would also find this. It's like you're sitting there, and as the wind gets into your hair, you think like, this is the place, this is the land that Krishna's feet touched. The dust that's touching your body, that's carried by the wind, is imbued with, every particle is imbued with the bhakti shakti of Krishna's lotus feet. Everything in Mathura is so special. Every tree, some of these trees are standing there for thousands of years. They are witnesses to Krishna's pastimes. You'll see the Brijbasis hugging those trees. You go to the Kaliya Ghat and you'll see this tree that's hollow inside. There's no phloem or xylem vessels inside, right? But a tree is giving birth further down to green leaves. And then you hear the story of how Garuda, he poured nectar at that tree. So when Kaliya was in the Yamuna, then Kaliya's poisonous effect was so vast that the birds that were flying in the sky were falling dead because the venomous poison was polluting and killing them. How did this tree survive? Because Garuda put the nectar at the root of this tree, knowing well that Krishna is going to come and Krishna is going to perform the pastime at this point. This tree has got some service in the future. So Mathura is that type of place. You go and then you see these monkeys, and they may be an interference to your life in a big way. So these monkeys, they are so special because you have to check your consciousness after you get irritated. You have to check your consciousness to say that they are guaranteed the last birth, and me, no guarantee. So who has a higher right here? Those inhabitants of this holy dham. So Mathura, we're going to come back to Mathura also in this section. Simply by seeing Mathura city, which is manifest from Lord Krishna's transcendental form, one attains the goal of life. Can you imagine? There's a place on this planet which has such an effect on the Atma, on you eternally. What use is there to go anywhere else? There's no use, right? There's no use to go anywhere else. Dark complexioned, four-armed associates of Lord Krishna go here and there in Mathura to bring anyone who dies there to the spiritual world. So once we were sitting, traversing on a rickshaw, and it's a bumpy ride. And if you've ever been to Radha Raman temple that way, on the way to the Yamuna, the bumps are even very bad. So one time, and sometimes you traverse through narrow, alleyways, etc. So on one such trip, I saw a piglet, because you get these piglets that look like the wild boars we saw in our nursery rhyme books. So you get that kind of pigs. And they have a service. They're the vacuum cleaners of Vrindavan. So they go out at night and they vacuum the entire place. And the daytime, you'll see them cooling off in the gutters, etc., sleeping on heaps of dirt and things like that. So I saw a piglet. Its body had been severed in the center, so two halves were on either side of our pathway. And I looked at this and I went, oh, I exclaimed. And the Shangananda Prabhu said, who's more fortunate? the piglet or you? So I had to readjust my consciousness on the spot because true to the fact that piglet had its last life, it's gone back to Godhead. It died in Vrindavan, in the dust of Vrindavan. I mean, and it immediately, there was a paradigm shift in my consciousness. So Mathura, that can only happen in that specific place, Mathura. To die in Mathura, in that's the Vrindavan area, etc., is such an auspicious ending to one's existence. Then rendering service to the devotees. Who is the biggest servant of the devotees? Haridasa Srimati Radharani called the Govardhan hill Haridasa Varya, right? That he's the chief servant of all the devotees. Why? Because at the time when he was balancing on the pinky finger of the young Krishna, 7-year-old Krishna, then what happened? He was able to serve all the cows, all the cowherd boys, all the elder gopis, all of the younger devotees. He was serving every resident of Vrindavan. So Krishna performed this pastime and he earned a name. In all of Krishna's pastimes, he exhibits one very amazing quality of Bhakta Vatsala, that he is the person who gives shelter to his devotees, Bhakta Vatsala. By serving Vaishnavas in his previous life, Narad was favored by the devotees of the Lord and became a great sage. Indeed, among sages, Narad is considered to be the greatest. You may all have read that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the life story of Narad Muni, this great personality, is mentioned there. He was the son of a maidservant, very insignificant start off. But what he did was that his mother, during the Chaturmas months, gave shelter to some sadhus and she fed them. And Narad Muni, he didn't have a father, so he went as the boy and he was serving all the sadhus, the meal that his mom had cooked. And by that service to the devotees, an incredible thing happened. Narad Muni became the Narad Muni. In the Padma Purana, there's a very nice statement praising the service of the Vaishnavas or the devotees. In that scripture, Lord Shiva tells Parvati, "My dear Parvati, there are different methods of worship, and out of all such methods of worship, the Supreme Person is considered to be the highest. But even higher than the worship of the Lord is the worship of the Lord's devotees." And when I came up to Johannesburg, I encountered this concept in a very nice way. When we were in Muldersdrift, we would go from Yeovil Preaching Center to Muldersdrift on weekends, and we'd stay till Monday morning. And very often, there would be some person on a Sunday who would come to the temple and say, "Here's a donation, please feed the devotees in the temple." So it was a common thing. So they would specifically say, they won't say feed the deities, they would say feed the devotees in the temple. And then, that time Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj was not a sannyasi, so he would cook the feast and he would ask me to come to help. And an amazing thing, he would make, we would, as a team, we would make different nice preparations because they would give enough money for an opulent feast. It was an amazing thing. So quite regularly, people will come, they come to the temple and they say, feed the devotees, cook a feast, feed the devotees. So then, at that time, it was so common, but nowadays it may not be so common because people have moved away from our culture so much, So this feeding of the devotees, when I went to India, I came across this in an amazing way also the one time. Some people One man, he called me the one time. I went to India alone 2 weeks before Nishinga Prabhu. And somebody called me from the back, said, Mataji, Mataji. So I was just walking by Prabhupada's house where Prabhupada passed away. And he happened to be the head of the Radha Raman temple. You know, the family that takes care of Gopal Bhatta Goswami's deity. So the Shaligram Shila manifested overnight into this form of Radha Raman. And that devotee it takes this rendering service to the devotees to another extreme. You know what he does? And his wife, they don't have a source of income. They just take care of Gopal Bhatta Goswami's deity. So what they do is every day they cook for at least minimum 7 people. So he didn't know me at all. He just saw me and he told me, you should come to my house. So I didn't accept the invitation. Then when Nishinga Prabhu came, then, I told him, there's somebody has invited us to some temple in Vrindavan. But we don't eat outside, the Hare Krishna temple. I didn't realize what a special occasion this was to go and eat at that place. And sure enough, Prabhu and I were walking in Vrindavan, and this person, Padmanabh Goswami is his name. He stopped me again. He said, Mataji, I'm waiting for you. When are you coming? Is this your Prabhuji? So I said, yes. So then he said, both of you have to come. And then he mentioned Raghava Pandit Prabhu from Durban. He said, Raghava's coming on this day. I also invited him. You come also on that day. And then we went with Raghava Prabhu. And it was an incredible thing. They cook to their heart's content. There's like sweet rice and gulab jamans and so many types of chutney and savory. And it's like a massive feast. And he just serves. So then I asked him, Prabhu, is it an occasion today? He said, no. He said, every day, this is my vrat, that I will feed the devotees. So you know how Prabhupada explains that a grihasta should go out, and scripture explains and call out, is there anybody hungry before he eats his food? So this devotee practices this. So up until today, that culture is there. Every day, if you go there, this is happening. So it's like an amazing thing. And he feeds the devotees like himself. No servant comes, he comes himself. When Prabhupada established the Juhu temple, he told one devotee, Mr. Sethi, right? Mr. P.L. Sethi. So he told Mr. Sethi, every Sunday, I'd like for you to cook a feast and call all the devotees to your house and feed them. Mr. Sethi took this to heart. Amidst all of the other amazing services he did for Srila Prabhupada, standing with his gun and, guarding against the gundas, fighting, when the temple was being broken, rebuilding the temple overnight, with his construction company. Mr. Sethi did so many amazing things for Srila Prabhupada. But one of the things that he never forgot throughout all this time was this instruction that Prabhupada gave him to feed the devotees. So one time when I went to Mumbai, my spiritual master, he told me, I'm going to Mr. Sethi's house, you must come. We're having a program there. So, I got together with the other Matajis that were going, and we went there. And it was an incredible thing. Mr. Sethi was a frail old man. He couldn't walk himself. He had a walking stick. But to serve the devotees, he was holding onto his son's arm. And his son had the dish, but with his shaky hand, with so much of love, he served every single devotee himself. And he was still doing it as a religious principle every single Sunday. So the service to the devotees is like such an amazing thing. And Prabhu will tell you how in Yeovil, there was this thing about serving the devotees that was so prominent. It was so prominent in our culture. Every evening, we would have a free feast at the temple. an opulent feast cooked in cream and butter, etc. So every single evening, Monday to Friday, so Kunti Devi, myself, and Vidura Prabhu, Guru Goranga, different devotees, we would go out and we would distribute books on the street. Then we'd take names of people and we'd invite them to come to the evening feast. And Rancha Prabhu and other devotees who were in the temple, including Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, that then Raghubi Prabhu, they would cook the feast. And every evening we had a room full of people and they were served to their heart's content. And then His Holiness Giriraj Swami, he taught us the buffet style is a Western introduction. He said when Srila Prabhupada introduced the Sunday feast in Juhu, he sat on his Vyasa and he directed how the devotees should sit in rows and then the other devotees go and serve them, right? And he said this is the culture of service, of loving reciprocation that Rupa Goswami explains, of giving and accepting prasadam. So this rendering of service to the devotees, so much can be said. So just by that act of cooking a feast and serving the devotees, there are many ways you can serve devotees. But just that feeding the devotees was such an amazing thing that many people became devotees from attending that program. You know, I can name a whole list of people that attended programs then, came every day, ate prasadam there, and then are still devotees up until today. You know, in the Padma Purana, there's a nice, we read that, right? So Lord Shiva, he's telling Parvati that actually there's so many types of worship. Worship to Vishnu is the highest, but even higher than that is to worship the devotee of the Lord. And we'll encounter this again in this session. A similar statement is made in the 3rd canto, 7th chapter, verse 19 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me become a sincere servant of the devotees, because by serving them one can achieve unalloyed devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Lord. The service of the devotees diminishes all material conditions and develops within one deep devotional love for the Supreme Lord. So what happens when you serve devotees? You know, is it just someone's thought that, okay, some pandits got together and they wanted to be maintained, so they included this in scripture? No. It is explained here that what happens? One can achieve unalloyed devotional service, something that yogis strive to perfect in many thousands of lives. Then it diminishes miserable material conditions. The Wednesday feast at the temples in our days as full-time devotees was such a midweek oasis of joy. After the Sunday, you have to just live through Monday and Tuesday, because Wednesday you come back to the temple and you were geared up for anything that came your way, any material misery. By the time Friday and Thursday and Friday passed, you were ready to come back on Sunday. So this was like such an amazing program Prabhupada had given, and when we followed it, we saw how it brought bliss to so many people. The society was stronger, relationships were stronger, Krishna consciousness flourished so nicely. Prabhupada himself, he told Lakshmi Moni Mataji that without the cooks, this whole movement will be finished, right? So it's like Prabhupada said that. In the Skanda Purana, there's a similar statement: person whose bodies are marked with tilak, symbolizing the conch shell, wheel club, and lotus, and who keep the leaves of tulsi on their heads, whose bodies are always decorated with gopi chandan, even seen once, can help the seer to be relieved from all sinful activities. So this thing about appearing as a devotee, not within reason, as far as possible, when one wears the attire, etc., it makes a difference in the ethos. It makes a difference in the society. So this service to the devotee is exemplified and is shown by Krishna himself in so many different pastimes. There's the pastime when you go to Nandagram of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva came and he wanted to see baby Krishna. But Mother Yasoda saw that he looked so fearful. He came in disguise. But he looked so fearful because his body was smeared with ashes, etc., that she said, no, no, no. The baby will get frightened if she shows the baby the sadhu. So she took the baby inside, and Krishna started to cry uncontrollably. Why? Nobody knew. So Mother Yasoda ran around trying to pacify Krishna in so many different ways, and eventually Punamasi asked, who came to visit today? So she named all the people, because she was the queen of Vrindavan. She knew all the people, all the families, etc. So she said who all came to visit Krishna on that day. So then she said, and there was one person I've never seen before, and this sadhu, but I couldn't let him see Kana. So Punamasi said, go and look for him. Krishna wants to see that person. So she went, they found Lord Shiva and they brought him back. And Krishna stopped crying. He became completely pacified. And then Mother Yasoda said, you have done something so amazing that I value this so much. I want you to stay here all the time in the courtyard of Nandagan. So that's why when you go to Nandagram now, you see there's a Shivling. Lord Shiva made two, how you say? Two conditions. The one condition is after you bath Lala every morning, that water must first come to my head. And second condition, when you feed him, the remnants come to me. So sure enough, you see when the Abhishek is done for the Krishna deity in the main temple, there's a pipe, etc. There's where the water will now come, the milk, etc. And it falls on the Shivling in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna himself showed that the worship of his devotee is actually so amazing. And of course, there's the story of Sudama, even being in the company of the goddess of fortune herself, Rukmini Devi, Satyabhama, and all the amazing queens of Dwarika. When the poor dusty Brahmin came, Krishna seated him on his own asana and washed his two lotus feet. So the service to the devotees is not made up. It's shown even in Krishna's behavior. A similar statement is founded in the first canto, 19th chapter, verse 33 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's no doubt about one's becoming freed from all reactions to sinful activities after visiting a devotee or touching a devotee's lotus feet or giving him a sitting place. Even by remembering the activities of such a Vaishnav, one becomes purified along with one's whole family. And what then can be said of rendering direct service to him? So Prabhupada made a statement that if one tries to practice Krishna consciousness on one's own, that is simply hallucination. So this going to see a devotee, just seeing a devotee, touching his feet, offering him a sitting place, brings so much of joy and auspiciousness in one's own life. It alters one's state of being. But of course, it's not just any devotee. It's a devotee who is true to the legacy of the previous acharyas. In the Adi Purana, there's the following statement by Lord Krishna himself, addressing Arjuna. My dear Partha, one who claims to be my devotee is not so. Only a person who claims to be the devotee of my devotee is actually my devotee. No one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. One must approach him through his pure devotees. Therefore, in the system of Vaishnava activities, the first duty is to accept a devotee as a spiritual master and then render service unto him. One time, Srila Prabhupada, he was in Mayapur and he was staying there for some time. So one of his servants, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, had a problem digesting the rice that was being cooked for the devotees. So if you know Bengal is a place of rice, paddy fields. And the devotees, when they eat rice, you see in the Gada building, when they come to serve, they don't have a serving spoon. They have the popcorn scoop. You know, popcorn scoop? And the thin ladies, the Bengali ladies, they eat a few scoops of that rice, right, in one sitting. So rice is the staple diet of all Bengalis. So they have different grades of rice. So at that time, the rice that was being served in the devotee kitchen for the regular devotees was a little hard to digest. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, as a Western-bodied person, was having some difficulty. So he asked Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was giving him so many important services. So he asked Srila Prabhupada, if it's okay that he takes the remnants of Prabhupada's rice, and Prabhupada's rice is being cooked, if he can take that. So Prabhupada said yes. So what happened was one day Prabhupada had taken prasad, excuse me. Thank you. So Srila Prabhupada had taken prasadam and he heard some commotion outside his room. So then Prabhupada asked, what was this commotion outside his room? Meanwhile, it was Harikesh Prabhu and Tamal Krishna Maharaj having a heated argument. Harikesh Prabhu's service was to take the remnants of Srila Prabhupada and distribute it to all the devotees, which he was trying to do quite religiously. On the other hand, Tamal Krishna Maharaj had nothing to eat and was dependent on that, got it sanctioned by Prabhupada, and he wanted some, enough for himself to eat so that he could continue his service. So this commotion, so Prabhupada called Hari Sari Prabhu, who was in his attendance at that time, and Prabhupada asked Hari Sari Prabhu to go and check what was the commotion outside. So he came back and he reported to Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada called them both in. And Prabhupada said, it's not enough for you to serve just me. Should be always eager to serve even the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. So it's not always, he said, it's not always enough to serve just the spiritual master, but also his servants, right? So Srila Prabhupada, he has many servants. Like Prabhupada one time said to one Mataji that you just hold on to my dhoti and, I'll take you to the spiritual world. He said that. Now, if you take this statement to heart, how many people's lives have been touched by Srila Prabhupada? A vast ocean. And we're the insignificant floaters in this ocean. So to grab onto Prabhupada's dhoti may be a little difficult because Prabhupada has captivated the hearts of so many people before I even woke up from my ignorance, to realize Prabhupada is my savior. Now for me to now think that I must go and get a spot in Prabhupada's, no. I should understand that the more I serve all of the people that are serving, upholding the legacy of Srila Prabhupada, the simple Sankirtan devotee, the devotees that, is going on Harinam, the devotee who's sweeping the temple, everyone who is serving Srila Prabhupada's mission is my master. That's why Prabhupada said, what's the word? Prabhu, which means master, right? So we have the opportunity to serve devotees given to us, created for us by Srila Prabhupada. And Krishna himself is saying, one who tries to be my devotee is not my devotee, but one who tries to be the devotee of my devotee is actually my devotee. So now some people may have difficulty because we're living in Kali Yuga, and there's so many disappointments that may come, and one may find it very difficult to serve, someone who will represent Srila Prabhupada. Is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. If someone serves Srila Prabhupada wholeheartedly, that is also okay. Why? Because the more he serves Srila Prabhupada, the more love will awaken in the person's heart, the more one will start loving every other devotee who's upholding Prabhupada's legacy in whichever way, the more one will actually try to become the servant of the servant further down the line. Serving the Lord according to one's position. In the Padma Purana, there's a statement that one should perform ceremonies for the Lord according to one's financial position. Everyone should observe the different ceremonies and celebrations of the Lord by all means. So one should not hold back. When it comes to organizing festivals, serving the Lord according to one's position is actually very amazing. So if it's, some festival that you hear about, then you try to facilitate it to the best of your ability in whatever capacity you can. Performing devotional service in Kartik. In the Padma Purana, it's said, the Lord may offer liberation or material happiness to a devotee, but after some devotional service has been executed, particularly in Mathura during the month of Kartik, the devotees want only to attain pure devotional service unto the Lord. The purport is that the Lord does not award devotional service to ordinary persons who are not serious about it. But even such unserious persons who execute devotional service according to the regular principles during the month of Kartik and within the jurisdiction of Mathura in India are very easily awarded the Lord's personal service. So there's a devotee, a Prabhupada disciple, I forget his name. He sings the Shishashtakam very nicely. He's Spanish, so you'll hear his accent. You can listen. I'm sure if those of you download music from YouTube, someone will be able to find out. I think his name is Atmarama. Yes, his name is Atmarama. So this devotee, Atmarama Prabhu, he plays guitar. So he was on a train once. So every year when we would go to study in Vrindavan, you know the regular faces that you're going to see, and as devotees tell you, that's a Prabhupada disciple, that's a Prabhupada disciple, etc. Right? So I used to see this devotee, but he was very unassuming, etc. So one day I met some hippies, and we went, it was, in those days we never had personal laptops and electronic devices, etc. So if you wanted to communicate with somebody, you go to the STD office, you pay a fee, and you use the internet there and their computer. So Nishinga Prabhu had some email to send to some devotee in South Africa, and we went to that place. And I was walking out, and my eye just caught the screen unintentionally, and I saw Afrikaans. And then I thought, wow, Afrikaans in Vrindavan. So I looked at this person. It was a white girl. She looked pretty hippish. So I said to her in Afrikaans, nog 'n Suid-Afrikaanse noitjie, another South African girl. So she turned around and she looked at me and she said, "You from South Africa?" I said, "Yes." So then I asked her how she got to Vrindavan. She didn't look like a devotee. She looked like a regular hippie. So she explained to me that herself and her two friends, one boy and another girl, they were actually traveling, they were all doing au pair in one country. So they got some money and they decided they're going to India because India is the land of wisdom, etc., etc., etc. So they came to India. But they don't know where in India, how big India is, what they were going to do. They just came to India. So they landed in Mumbai and they were on a train. And they very musically inclined in their hippish lifestyle. So they saw this devotee in a packed train and he was playing his guitar and he was singing something. He's a Western-bodied devotee. So they got attracted to him. And they went to him and he said, "Hey, yeah, where you guys headed?" So they said, "We have no idea." So he said, "You know what? I'm going to this village that is like the cherry on the top of the whole Indian pie, so to speak. I'm going to that village. Come, why don't you come? You got no other plans. Come." So they came to Vrindavan, and Indradumna Maharaj saw them with Atmarama Prabhu, and Indradumna Maharaj went and introduced himself to these hippish kind of characters. Then he took them on Govardhan Parikram. In this lifetime, I don't even think they dreamt of doing something like this. They walked the 25 miles around Govardhan Hill. They heard the chanting of all the devotees, etc., etc. And then it was one of their birthdays, and Indradumna Maharaj heard about it. So there's a house in Vrindavan that's known as Giriraj Swami's house, but in actual fact, it's Mother Acha Vigraha's house. She was a famous South African artist, and when she had cancer, then she built that house. And she said that she left her body, it was a preparation for her exit from this world. And then she left that house to His Holiness Giriraj Swami. So people commonly refer to it as Giriraj Swami's house. So Indradumna Maharaj used to stay there. So he had these devotees, these hippies come there, and he bought them, chanting beads and Vaishnava attire, etc., and he gave them on this person's birthday. Those people happened to be from Pretoria, and we would go to the Pretoria temple quite almost every Sunday. And for months after that, they became devotees. So this land of Mathura had such potent effect on these people I saw with my own two eyes that they remained devotees. They used to play drums in the kirtan. They painted a beautiful picture of Radha Krishna that hung on the wall of the Pretoria temple for a long time. So, it was all just from the contact with devotees and the land of Mathura during the Kartik period that actually, like, it was like as being in a Sputnik, going upwards spiritually, serving the deity with great devotion. Anyone who engages in the worship of the deity or the form of the Lord in the temple is understood to be studying all the Vedas 24 hours a day. Simply by decorating the deities of the Lord, Radha and Krishna in the temple, one very minutely studies the injunctions of the Vedas. Even a neophyte devotee who simply engages in the worship of the deity is understood to be in direct touch with the purport of Vedic knowledge. Even a neophyte devotee. However, one must understand that if one is serving one's own self-interest rather than the deity, this effect becomes dull, right? But if one willingly, voluntarily, wholeheartedly serving the deity, the effect is so amazing. I remember we had the good fortune of serving under His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj when he was the GBC for South Africa. And he would say that the pujari's spiritual purity reflects past those balustrades into the entire community outside, right? So it was so important for that person who was doing the worship to be following properly. His Grace, today is the 19th of July, is it not? On the 16th of July, 2010, His Grace, this devotee here, Ahindra Prabhu, he passed away at 10:30 in the night. There was some explosion in his room, and the next morning they found him. Now, he was such an amazing example of someone who perfected this art of deity worship. He would dress Radha Sham in the Vrindavan temple, and it would be a fest. Of course, every day is a festival, in Vrindavan, when you see those deities every day, if you stay there for a few days. But Ahindra Prabhu's dressing of the deities, I heard him speak, and you can go to YouTube and you can see he once was called to Mayapur, and then Pankajangri Prabhu and Jananivas Prabhu asked him to teach deity worship. It's amazing. It was years ago I listened to this. Actually, I must go back and listen to it as a refresher. But the mentality of worshipping the deity was so paka or pure with Ahindra Prabhu. Like he would take Radharani's skirt and he would allow it to touch Krishna's foot because that will make Krishna happy. because he will always be touching Radharani's skirt. And then he'll take Krishna's chadar and he'll explain how that must be attached to Srimati Radharani because that will then make her happy, right? And there's different little things that so much of thought, so much of heart went into that service. One of the things is, when you pin a flower on the turban of the Lord, he would be very particular that the color of the pin should not be like out of place. So if you're putting a white flower that has a yellow center, then you use a yellow-headed pin, to pin that. So he was that particular. So he was an amazing devotee. He'd wait, and before he went to dress the deities, do you know what he would do? He would chant 64 rounds before he went to dress the deity. He would wake up in the early hours just past midnight and he would chant rounds. Then he would dress Radhasham. Now, if you look at this devotee, he's very famous for his beard because he kept himself so busy talking about service to the devotees. Ahindra Prabhu, being a Prabhupada disciple, the head of the 24-hour kirtan party in Vrindavan, he would take pleasure in cleaning the lavatory of the devotees, the toilets of the devotees. Now, if you ever went to an Indian toilet, the hygiene standards are very, very, very far from acceptable by our standards here in the West. Ahindra Prabhu, with his own two hands, would cleanse this, would go and clean this. He put his gamsha on, he would go and clean. And any boy that came to learn kirtan under him, like Madhava, others, he would take them and he would to go clean toilets, right? And His Holiness Bhakti Marg Swami, up until today, he still does this in the Toronto temple. Brihad Bhagavat Maharaj was telling us that once when he came late from a preaching program to the Toronto temple, he heard some noise and it was so late, so he wanted to know what's happening. It's like some unnatural noise coming from the toilets. So he went in to go check, and to his amazement, he saw Bhakti Marg Swami in his gamsha cleaning the toilets. So he said, Maharaj, what are you doing? He said, no, this is my service. Please don't tell anybody about it. And he was doing that. Like when we were in Multisriff, it was a common thing that we would clean the toilets and you'd have to lift the wooden things and all the hair, etc., would be stuck underneath and you'd clean it. And I would never imagined myself doing something like this in life. But after you did it, there was like something lighter that it cannot be explained. You just felt a lot lighter because the service to the devotees, it has like some special thing. So observing festivals celebrating the Lord's activities, by observing different functions in relationship with the Lord, one is sure to become pleasing to the Lord. So how do you become pleasing to the Lord? You celebrate his festivals, these activities. In Vrindavan, everything Krishna does becomes a celebration. Krishna turns on his side, okay, Mother Yasoda has a festival. Krishna, it's that times when you put the baby for the first time on the ground so that he starts to crawl, it's a festival. Krishna, eats his first grains, it's a festival. Everything becomes a festival where Krishna is involved. Like in our Vaishnav calendar, there are the disappearance of so many different personalities. Nowadays, you hardly hear people talking about this. Previously, we used to celebrate all of it. And more so, we'd stay up all night. If it was a half-day festival, we take the opportunity to stay up all night having kirtan in Hillbrow. So there were like about 7 of us. One devotee, he would take the service of staying up to clean the deity kitchen thoroughly. And the rest of us, we used to have kirtan in the temple room. It was so blissful. So observing festivals, it puts you on a completely different level. Then we come to recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam amongst devotees. So Srila Prabhupada explains in this section that the Vedas is likened to be like an entire tree, that everything a human being needs to know, astrology, astronomy, arthashastra, if mathematics, everything a person needs to survive as a human being is contained in the Vedas, Ayurveda. All these things are in the Veda. No other book of knowledge, body of knowledge has this. So the Vedas is like this. So the Vedas, Prabhupada explains, is like a tree. But the glory of a tree is from the fruit it bears. So Prabhupada says a mango tree becomes so glorious because it delivers the ripened mango, which is the king of all fruits. So this mango tree delivering the mango fruit, the fruit of the tree of the Vedas is considered to be, the ripened fruit of the Vedas is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Very good, right? The Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the Vedas. Um, Then Prabhupada explains the Srimad Bhagavatam should be received in disciplic chain without any breakage. When a ripened fruit comes from the upper part of the tree onto the ground by the process of being handed down from the higher branch to the lower branch by the persons in the tree, the fruit does not break. The Srimad Bhagavatam, when received in the Parampara system or disciplic succession, would likewise remain unbroken. So today I read on social media, His Holiness Giriraj Swami made a post about Nanda Kumar Prabhu from America, who was Prabhupada's personal servant. So Nanda Kumar, one time, he entered Srila Prabhupada's room late in the night to give him his hot milk. Every night Prabhupada would drink hot milk and sometimes with some puffed rice. So that day he took Prabhupada was having just hot milk. So he took the hot milk in for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada made a statement. He was reading his own books at that time. And Prabhupada told Nanda Kumar Prabhu, these books are so relishable. It's not like he wrote them. It came from a different source. He was just the instrument. So these books that are given to us by Srila Prabhupada, they have the potency, even if they're imperfectly composed, if there's a grammatical error in it or anything like that, they have made so many devotees, right? When we got the original Bhagavad Gita, we didn't even notice the grammatical errors. We didn't notice it. We read it. It had an impact on our lives. It was transformed. It reawakened us. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. So what happens when you read the Bhagavatam? You get unflinching faith. That means you become steady. You reach the level of nishta. So that's why Prabhupada, he stressed so much that we should have a sandwich program. Morning and evening, you read the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, etc., like that. Then Prabhupada explains that this Bhagavatam is not just a fruit from the Vedas. It is a fruit that's touched by the mouth of a parrot. So when a mango is eaten by a parrot, Prabhupada explains, it becomes sweeter. So this Sukadev Goswami, who is narrating the Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit, who is he? He is that same parrot Radharani had. And she'd tell him, say Govinda, Govinda, and she'd feed him pomegranate seeds. And he said that. So when Krishna was leaving the planet, then he told Sukha, you stay, you'll have some service here. So Sukha was flying around and he was feeling so depleted of Krishna Krishna Katha. Then he saw Shiva speaking the Bhagavatam to Parvati. And then Parvati fell asleep, and Lord Shiva had warned her not to sleep because it's not good to sleep in the Bhagavatam class. So when she was making just to show Lord Shiva she's awake, Then the parrot, when she fell asleep, the parrot started making because he didn't want the kata to stop on account that she fell asleep. Then Lord Shiva, when he realized she's asleep, so who's making the sound? And he saw the parrot, unqualified person, not supposed to receive the Bhagavatam. So he took his trishul and he was chasing. And the parrot flew to Badrik Ashram, saw Vyasadeva speaking to his wife, and his wife yawned. And at that time, Sukha entered and grew as Sukadev Goswami in the belly of Vyasadev's wife. So this fruit of the Bhagavatam, Sukadev Goswami himself explains that he became, even though he was, to some degree elevated as a Brahmavadi, he became really a devotee when he heard the nectar of the Bhagavatam from his father. So associating with, is there any questions thus far? You're okay? So associating with advanced devotees, even those pious activities which can promote one to the heavenly planets or give liberation from material miseries cannot compare to association with advanced devotees. No kind of material happiness can compare to it. In the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, there is a conversation between Prahlad Maharaj and his father Hiranyakashipu, in which Hiranyakashipu addresses Prahlad in this way. Quote, "My dear son, association is very important. It acts like a crystal stone, which will reflect anything which is put before it. Similarly, unquote, similarly, if we associate with the flower-like devotees of the Lord, and if our hearts are crystal clear, then certainly the same action will be there. So if we are that fortunate to come in the association of devotees and hear pure spiritual subject matter, your heart starts to reflect it, because what happens? It's contagious. Another example given in this connection is that if a man is potent and if a woman is not diseased, then by their conjugation, there will be conception. In the same way, the recipient of spiritual knowledge and the deliverer of spiritual knowledge are sincere and bona fide. There will be good results. You can only give what you have, right? However, Prabhupada and the mercy of Lord Nityananda have made a very amazing thing happen. That even when we unqualified, if we simply repeat or we simply take a book of Srila Prabhupada's, and we ourselves, like I gave you the example of the drug dealer in Soweto once before, he was selling drugs, but every person he sold drugs to, he gave them a Prabhupada book, and he made so many devotees like that. So this effect is like a touchstone effect. Chanting the holy names of the Lord. The importance of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My dear King, if one is spontaneously attached to chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it is to be understood that he has attained the highest perfectional stage. Anyone who is engaged in chanting my transcendental name must be considered to be always associating with me. And I may tell you frankly that for such a devotee, I become easily purchased. So Krishna is telling this in the Adi Purana, that he will become purchased by someone who is constantly chanting the holy names, right? How glorious is this? And, Ahindra Prabhu, he and many others in this movement have exemplified this, right? That they have taken the holy name. It is so incredible that this devotee, he was a Sankirtan devotee in America, and then he relocated to Vrindavan and he started the 24-hour kirtan, which was Prabhupada's desire. At that time, when he did that, an incredible thing happened. Even though he's not on the planet any longer, there's like a wave of Ahindra Kirtan that's now touched every crevice of this planet practically. So the potency of faith in the holy name is like that. It's so contagious. In the early days in Mumbai, His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj was telling us, he would go on Sankirtan, and at that time, the Indian political parties, they wanted to discredit the Western Hare Krishna devotees. So they made a movie called Dam Mara Dam Hare Krishna Hare Ram, which was um, um, it started off with, the waves of an ocean, and how Prabhupada crossed the ocean, and there was a big Jagannath Ratha Yatra chariot, and all the Western devotees singing and dancing in different parts of the world, and Jagannath is being pulled. And then they went on to say in the movie, that's how the movie started. Then the movie said something to the effect that that Western devotion, within inverted commas, that was the result of smoking ganja, right? And taking drugs, because these are all hippies. They're not born brahmanas like us Indian people, etc., etc., etc. So the devotee, so whenever, now Giriraj Maharaj is a Western bodied devotee. So as a Sankirtan devotee, he was going out in Mumbai, Madras, and different places, and people would mock them. Even common rickshaw-wallahs, when they'd see the Hare Krishna devotees, they'd say, "Dam Mare Dam, Hare Krishna Hare Ram," right? That's what they would say. So Giriraj Maharaj told Srila Prabhupada about this, and Prabhupada said, "Don't worry. Let them keep chanting like that. Eventually, the Dam Mara Dam will fall, and Hare Krishna Hare Ram will remain." And true to Srila Prabhupada's words, Giriraj Swami says that what happened? As time passed, the community as a whole saw that these devotees were here to stay. They were so sincere, and thereby they stopped teasing them Dam Hare Dam, and every time they saw them, they'll say Hare Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Hare Rama. And up until today, if you go, any common person who sees you with tilak dhoti, they'll say Hare Krishna Hare Rama. You're going to Hare Krishna Hare Rama temple? No problem, we'll take you there. So this Hare Krishna is so potent. The chanting of, when Prabhupada was taking his sannyas initiation, and then all the pandits, the pandit who was doing the fire yagya, he was chanting all the mantras for the fire yagya. So there's one god brother of Srila Prabhupada's, Akinchana Das Babaji Maharaj. He came to the movement how? Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj had a newspaper advert, and the newspaper advert said, anyone who can chant Hare Krishna for how many hours of the day, a whole day, non-stop, can join our movement and we'll take care of them. Something to that effect. So Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj signed up for this, and he came and he joined, and he never stopped chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. He's an exemplary chanter of the mantra. So during Prabhupada's sannyas initiation, Prabhupada's sannyas was when? 17th September. That's why Bhakti Maharaj thought that this was such an auspicious day. Therefore, he has his Vyasa Puja is celebrated on that day, not as his Vyasa Puja, but he wanted it as a Prabhupada memorial festival to commemorate Prabhupada taking sannyas on the 17th of September. So what happened was Akinchanadas Babaji Maharaj was chanting, and the Pandit conducting the yagya told him to stop because his mantras needed to be heard. And Prabhupada, he did like this, like continue chanting, he discreetly told Akinchanadas Babaji Maharaj. Years later, Akinchanadas Babaji Maharaj, he met His Holiness Bibi Govinda Maharaj, and he told him, so many people were sent to the West to preach. They were given spending money. They were given so much facility by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. Why they did not succeed? Why our Prabhupada has succeeded? He said, because of his faith in the holy name. And he told the story. He said, how Prabhupada was encouraging him to chant when the other Pandit thought that other mantras were more potent. But the chanting of the holy name has got such potency. In the Padma Purana, it is stated, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is present only on the lips of a person who has, for many births, worshipped Vasudev. Padma Purana also states, there's no difference between the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself. As such, the holy name is as perfect as the Lord himself in fullness, purity, and eternity. The holy name is not a material sound vibration, nor has it any material contamination. The holy name cannot, therefore, be chanted offenselessly by one who has contamination, by one who has failed to purify his senses. In other words, materialistic senses cannot properly chant the holy name of the Hare Krishna mantra. But by adopting this chanting process, one is given a chance to actually purify himself so that he may very soon chant offenselessly. So there are many people who may be chanting the Hare Krishna mantra for personal aggrandization. And this is noted here by Srila Prabhupada. And he says, what's the solution? Let them keep chanting. So whether they're chanting, to become celebrities, whatever they, akama sarva kamova, moksha kama udaradi, whatever your intention is, stick to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and it will purify you. But if you understand books by Srila Prabhupada like this, and you catch the point quicker, and with purity you chant, it will have a greater effect, in other words. So this is an incredible thing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended that everyone chant the Hare Krishna mantra just to cleanse the dust from the heart. If the dust of the heart is cleansed away, then one can actually understand the importance of the holy name. When can one chant? When one is pure. Otherwise, the Harinam Chintamani explains it's just syllables that's falling out of the mouth. So what's the solution? Keep chanting, right? Then he says the dust of the heart has to be cleansed, then only one can understand the importance of the holy name. For persons who are not inclined to clean the dust from their hearts and who want to keep things as they are, it is not possible to derive the transcendental result of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So if one wants maximum result, one has to follow the recipe, in other words, right? One should therefore be encouraged to develop his service attitude towards the Lord, because this will help him to chant without any offense. So last week, Nishingananda Prabhu explained that if we chant the holy name, for who you're chanting? Chanting for Krishna's pleasure. So if he said that if you perform your service and if you chant Hare Krishna like that, for Krishna's pleasure, you read the Bhagavatam for Krishna's pleasure, then what happens? This service attitude is cultivated, because you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it as a service for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, under the guidance of a spiritual master, the disciple is trained to render service and at the same time chant Hare Krishna mantra. As soon as one develops his spontaneous service attitude, he can immediately understand the transcendental nature of the holy names and the Maha Mantra. So the recommendation is you serve the devotees, you serve the holy name, you develop a service attitude by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, and serve during the month of Kartik in Mathura. Service, 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 service. Why? Jivera Swarapoi, Krishnera Nitya Das. We have to strive to become Das and a Das and a Das and a Das. Cultivate the service attitude. The reason we in the material world is because we have the Ishwara attitude, that I am supreme, everyone else needs to serve me. So we have to move away from that and cultivate the reality of the fact that I am servant, everyone else is Prabhu. In the Padma Purana, there's a statement about the importance of living at holy places like Mathura or Dwarka. So we've arrived back in Mathura. It is stated here, to travel to different places of pilgrimage means to attain emancipation from material bondage. This emancipation, however, is not the highest perfectional stage. After attaining this liberated stage, one has to become engaged in devotional service to the Lord. What's the goal of going to Mathura or traveling to all places of pilgrimage? Service, right? After, and what are the 9 processes of service? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam, right? Padasevanam. I missed Padasevanam. Thank you. So there's these 9 processes. So what do you do when you go to the holy Dham? You don't, I was told you never ever take a list of places like you're going on sightseeing. And I'm going to accomplish this, accomplish that, accomplish this when I go to these holy places. No, it is about absorption in the holy name and the service of the holy name, or service in any other way, service to the Vaishnavas. After attainment of the Brahma Bhuta stage, one can further advance to engagement in devotional service. So this attainment of transcendental loving devotional service to the Lord is the goal of life. And it can be achieved very easily for one who lives in Mathura Mandal, even for a few seconds. Why? Because you'll see how contagious devotion to Krishna is when you're in the environment of Mathura. It can be Ekadashi. At 2 o'clock in the morning, you will hear people chanting with great exuberance the holy name of the Lord. Why? They've started the Govardhan Parikram already for Ekadashi. And then they'll do the entire Vraj Mandal Parikram that early. And you'll feel like, wow, and I'm still sleeping. I'm meant to wake up at 3:30, to go to Mangal Arati. It's contagious. The mood of enthusiasm will just like carry you. If you and so many, there's so many things, you can just become so influenced by that contagious devotion in these places. Then we come near the end now. The 5 potent, we in chapter 13, where Rupa Goswami has stated the 5 kinds of devotional activities, namely residing in Mathura, worshipping the deity of the Lord, residing in the Bhagavatam, serving the devotee, and chanting Hare Krishna. These 5 things are the most important things, the 5 most potent forms of devotional service. Residing in Mathura can also be in the West if you create the proper consciousness. Prabhupada has created oases. So if we maintain the legacy of Prabhupada, that vibe will become so prominent that it will become that much inspirational. Are so potent that a small attachment for any one of these 5 potent items can arouse devotional ecstasy even in a neophyte. I know one devotee, he's such a rascal. He does so many wrong things. But one thing he knows is that Kartik, he has to go to Vrindavan. So whatever business he does, he does a business, is self-employed. But he must go to get, he says, that's his time to get Radharani's mercy. So when he goes to Kartik, when he goes there, ask him, so what do you do? He said, I just get lost in the kirtans there. And it's amazing. So, people may scorn upon him that, he's not a full packet of biscuits, so to speak. He's a few cents short. He's not a pure devotee or whatever. But he's got this small attachment. He'll have to go. He saves his money. He makes it somehow or the other. And he goes there and he comes back so revived. Even though he comes back and his lifestyle puts him back into the, few steps back, he still knows that's my salvation. And he works towards going there. Krishna, he's very compassionate towards that kind of mood. One time, Prabhupada went to Hawaii, and Prabhupada asked for Sudama, and Sudama had left. And Prabhupada said, oh, where is Sudama? The devotee said he left. Then someone said he keeps joining and leaving. He comes and goes, in other words. So Prabhupada said, just see how much he loves Krishna. That, even though he knows he's slipping down, he still reaches for Krishna. And he slips, and then he's still reaching for Krishna. That means there's determination in the heart, right? That he still, somehow or the other, he knows the goal of life and he's reaching. And sure enough, he left his body in such an amazing way. You can read about it. Regarding worship of the form of the Lord or the deity, Rupa Goswami has written the following verse. My dear friend, if you still have any desire to enjoy the company of your friends within the material world, then don't look upon the form of Krishna, who's standing on the bank of Kesighat, a bathing place in Vrindavan. He's known as Govinda. His eyes are very enchanting. He's playing upon his flute, and on his head, there are peacock feathers. There's a peacock feather. His whole body is illuminated by moonlight in the sky. So, Krishna is very enchanting, and the worshipping of the form of Krishna, if one does it purely, is such an amazing thing that one gives up all other types of engagement. The purport of this verse is that someone becomes attached to Sri Murti or the deity of Krishna by worshipping at home. Then he will forget his relationships of so-called friendship, love, and society. So Prabhupada is not saying that you have to worship in a temple, right? Prabhupada knew that he told his devotees that in the future, majority will be living outside the temple. So what you do, he's saying here, you worship in your house even the deity of Krishna, and you become attached. Whose house is it? The deity's house. Whose boga you buying? The deity's boga. Why are you going to work? You're going to maintain Krishna's house, pay Krishna's light bill. You're going to serve Krishna. So, thus, it's the duty of every householder to install deities of the Lord at home and to begin the process of worshipping along with all of his family members. So, you don't have to leave and go away. Prabhupada is making it so easy here for us. He's telling us you can stay at home and you can worship. This will save everyone from such unwanted activities as going to clubs, cinemas, dancing parties, smoking and drinking, etc. All such nonsense will be forgotten if one stresses the worship of the deity at home. What you're going to eat? What you offer to the deity. What you're going to look at? Things that glorify the deity, because you don't want Krishna to get frightened seeing all your horror movies or whatever, right? So you're going to become, your paradigm is going to shift. Your whole thought patterns shift with a Krishna-centered lifestyle. This accepting Krishna in the house. Prabhupada wanted every house to have a set of Gaurnitai deities, the Yuga avatar deities. And he wanted everyone to worship like that. Prabhupada had a set of deities, Radha Krishna deities, that his father had given him when he was small. So he used to worship those deities. So when he became the Acharya, he still had these deities, but he had it in a cupboard. So one day, his sister, Bhavatarini, she came, Vishima, and she was crying because her husband, he was a woman abuser. So he did everything wrong in the books. He would, go after other women. He would drink the wrong things. He would eat the wrong things. He was a badly behaved person. So when she came and she was crying by Prabhupada and she was saying, this is the situation in life, Prabhupada took that Radha Krishna deity and gave to her. Said, go worship. You cook, you offer the deity, and the remnants you give to him. Right? And she did that. And the man transformed. He transformed thoroughly, right? Because Krishna is in the heart. She followed with all sincerity the instruction. She worshipped Krishna, and Krishna reciprocated. He made the appropriate changes. This will save everyone from such unwanted activities. The places in the 84 square mile district of Mathura are so beautifully situated on the banks of the river Yamuna that anyone who goes there will never want to return to this material world. Unfortunately, when we take the plane ticket to India, we land on the outer covering of Maya. So you'll see the water is dirty in this kund, there's litter here, there's pigs here. You'll see the outer things. But if you go to Vrindavan with the proper attitude, seeing through Shastra Chakshush, seeing through the eyes of, for example, Prabodhananda Saraswati's prayers of Vrindavan and the pastimes in the different places, then your whole consciousness becomes very different. These statements by Rupa Goswami are factually realized descriptions of Mathura and Vrindavan, and these qualities prove that Mathura and Vrindavan are situated transcendentally. Otherwise, there would be no possibility of invoking our transcendental sentiments in these places. Such transcendental feelings are aroused immediately and without fail after one arrives in Mathura and Vrindavan. You know that devotee who took us, who asked me to come eat, invited us to come eat at Radharaman temple. So from his balcony, you look down and it's a whole forest of Niduvan. So Niduvan is the forest where Radha and Krishna go to sleep. So there's a small temple inside there, and they place different articles for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna and the gopis. And every night, one item is used, right? At 6 o'clock, all monkeys, flies, everything leave that place. No living entity stays there. The place is locked, the pujari is gone. Next morning, 6 o'clock, they open, and then they'll find items used. If people stay there, they either disappear or they become um, blind, deaf, and dumb, mad simultaneously, so they can't communicate anything, or they die, something like that happens. So, unqualified, you can't go there. So, this place, Niduvan, is so incredible. When you see the trees in Niduvan, you can actually see they're forming little groves. The way they bend and the way their trunks form, they're actually like developing little cave-like structures for the young Radha and Krishna to enjoy pastimes, right? And those trees, one Brijbasi told me, those trees are personalities who transform at night, and they all engage in Ras Leela. So different things like that. Sevakunj is a place of Rasa Leela. So when you go to these places, you can't be struck, you can't avoid being struck by awe that, these are like special things here. Like, you go to a little further on, oh, there's a kund there. And that's the place where Krishna, Lalita was feeling thirsty. And what Krishna did, he took his flute out, he dug the thing there, he dug the earth up, and water came by his potency there. And Lalita could drink water. Then you go somewhere, it's like everything in Vrindavan is so special. It's like every stone, it's like some of the stones on the Govardhan hill, they actually melt and they have the footprint of Srimati Radharani, right? Or Krishna. The stone just couldn't contain itself, it went into ecstasy. One sannyasi, he worships a Govardhan Shila that has on the head, he has the Radharani's footprint. So we had the good fortune of taking darshan of that when we used to go travel to different countries and preach previously. And it's amazing how everything, every twig, one devotee was telling me, she came from the Dham and she was serving in South Africa, and devotees would come and they would bring dust, and you'd honor it by putting it on your head. She's saying, here we put this dust on her head. Imagine I stayed in the Dham and I was sweeping my room and putting all this dust in a dustpan, throwing it out, and she was just expressing how sometimes you can become over familiar when you stay in the Dham. But nevertheless, everything there has got that potency to pull you closer to Krishna. You see the flowers, at a certain season, there's these tiny white flowers that have this amazing fragrance, but they grow on a tree that's like the size of a mango tree. I don't know the name of this flower. It has like a small orange center. They're like tiny sort of jasmine kind flowers. So you know how the devotees collect those flowers to offer to the deities? So they put a sheet under the tree, and then the breeze will blow and the flowers will fall on the sheet, And they take the sheet and then they use those flowers for worship because you can't use flowers that fall on the ground. So it's like the whole mentality is like so different, you know. It's like everything is so Krishna centered. My one friend, when she went to Vrindavan, she was my roommate, and then she went to Vrindavan before I could go. And she was telling me she was once walking in Vrindavan. Now, I don't like snakes. I don't like pictures of snakes. I don't like snakes. I don't like anything to do with snakes. So I asked her firstly, it's a forest, so, are there snakes in Vrindavan? So she told me, but these snakes are different. She said, I was walking one time. She's telling me about this. She's walking Vrindavan, and then a snake came from the tree. And the residents of Vrindavan who were walking ahead saw the snake and they said, Nag Baba, something pronounced to the Nag, right? They offered their respects to the snake and they continued walking. I would have bolted in the opposite direction. But they offered respects to the snake and they went and they continued going on. So everything there is actually so different from anything you'd experience in any other part of the world. Vrindavan Dham is like that. Yes, bro.
Some say that it's like offensive to take anything, like you say, take the dust and something down.
Mm-hmm.
And you explain that, and some say that it takes something from the down, you turn the equivalent amount in gold. Can you give some clarity in that?
Yeah. So Prabhupada said that about taking the rocks from the Govardhan hill, that you're not allowed to take those rocks out of Vrindavan. Actually, in the early days, you can hear the lecture, Pankajangri Prabhu and Jananivas, those two twin, the head pujaris, the chief caregivers of Radha Madhava and Panchatattva in Mayapur. So they explain how Prabhupada actually told them, don't worship the Govardhan Shila. They brought they got some Shilas, and Prabhupada was on the planet that time. And Prabhupada said, no, you don't worship, send them back. Must we leave it back on the hill. And then other times, Prabhupada used to carry a Shila in his white attache case, some devotees say, and he used to worship those deities. So eventually, I think Prabhupada allowed some devotees later on and show them how to worship or something to that effect. But up until today, I've also heard that Prabhupada said that don't take the stones from Govardhan Hill. If you take, you have to leave the equivalent weight of gold on the hill, which is not really practical. So don't take the stones. The only way you get a Shila to worship is some Brajbasi or someone will come and give it to you or some way like that. But the dust of Vrindavan, it's always good to keep some dust with you. So you carry some dust with reverence. Even when Lord Ram was leaving Ayodhya, he took some sand, he tied it in some cloth, and he carried it with him every day with worship, right? So this holy dham, the dust of Vrindavan is not different from Krishna, so it's actually worshipable. So one doesn't bring it and sprinkle in one's garden, for example, do something frivolous with it, or one worships it with reverence. We find it extremely important to keep dust. So every time someone's leaving their body, they'll phone Sringananda Prabhu and say, oh, someone's leaving their body. So you take Vrindavan dust and, the holy waters like that. So hopefully we keep some for ourselves also. So when our time comes, someone will be able to, do that. So yeah, it's a very important thing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now we come to the last slide. Some scholars argue that simply by following the principles of Varna and Ashram, one can gradually rise to the perfections reached by practicing devotional service. But this argument is not accepted by the great authorities. Lord Chaitanya also condemned this idea while he was talking with Ramananda Rai about the gradual development of devotional service. He rejected the idea of the importance of Varnashram Dham when it was put forward by Ramananda Rai. He said that this advancement of Varnashram is merely external. There is a higher principle. In Bhagavad Gita also, the Lord says that one has to give up all other principles of elevation and take simply to the method of Krishna consciousness. That will help one in achieving the highest perfection of life. So Varnashram is there to engage all types of people in Krishna's service to help everyone become elevated, but it's not the end or it's not the end all be all of our existence. There's something deeper because Varnashram is external and internally everyone is a servant of Krishna. So it has to be all very Krishna centered. Do we have any questions, comments, further clarifications, thoughts, corrections?
Android chanted 16 months.
Oh.
8 hours to chant 16
Yeah.
months.
Thank you very much, Hari Krishna. Sorry I went few minutes over time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai, Nikai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. And for those that are present, there's Maha Prasadam by the kind mercy of these nice devotees.